So welcome to the Field Day Roundtable portion of the NGINX Sprint Hackathon. I'm Stephen Foskett, organizer of Tech Field Day and publisher of Gestalt IT. And I am really excited to be here with such great folks. The thing that makes Tech Field Day the greatest thing for me are the delegates. So let's meet these folks before we get on with our discussion. I'm just going to go around the horn here on my screen. So let's start with Kati.
My name is Kati Lehmuskoski, and I have written 2 books on digital transformation. And I think on this panel, I'm looking things from like more business point of view. Great being here.
All right, thank you very much. Jared?
Hi, happy to be here. My name is Jared Santo. I'm the managing editor of changelog.com, where we make news and podcasts for developers. I've been podcasting about software development and interviewing the hackers, leaders, and innovators in the industry for over a decade now, and been using NGINX my entire career ever since I first found it and first realized this is a lot easier to use than Apache. I just couldn't quite figure out Apache back in the day, unless it was already set up, and then I was like, cool to go, but I couldn't get it going myself. NGINX on the other hand was awesome, so I was excited to be invited to NGINX Sprint and hang out and see all the exciting things going on in this space.
Great. Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jason Benedicic. I'm an independent consultant in the UK. I work mostly in automation and DevOps, so I have a reasonable understanding and use cases and usage of NGINX, but mostly around advising people how to integrate it into their CI/CD.
Great. And finally, we've got Darrel.
Hi, Darrel Clute here. Network and Unix systems engineer is engineering is my primary background. Worked on cross-functional teams extensively, working from development all the way through to production with the development staff right alongside, supporting the full stack and full life cycle. So that, and my first involvement with NGINX was actually back around 2006, working for a web host. So been using and have used NGINX for a fair amount of time.
All right. And then I'm seeing Christopher setting himself up here as well. Do you want to say hello to Christopher?
Yes, my name is Christopher Kusek. I'm the founder of Remediate Security, and in general, a long-term delegate and big fan of community and all things like technical and such like that. Actually, I have been familiar with NGINX for some time, but haven't worked with it too extensively. And at least what I've been finding over the past couple of days has been very eye-opening and very just kind of really exciting. I really love when I find bits and pieces of technology that I can share and evangelize and promote to others so it can actually have an impact on their life and their business and all things like that. And this has been a massive collection of all of that. So this has been a really exciting day. Well, this last couple of days.
Yep. All right, so let's start off here. So this is a hackathon. We are talking hacks here. I guess I don't want it to dive right into, what do you think of this one? What do you think of that one? Let's talk overall. Overall, what did you expect in terms of the ideas that the hackathon would generate? Did you, and were these the kind of things that you expected to hear from the hackathon? Let's start out with Jason. What do you think? Was this what you were expecting?
I think the overall theme I saw from a lot of them was very humanitarian. I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I thought there was maybe be a lot more technological focus and a lot more technology focus, but actually I think I'm quite overwhelmed, really. I mean, there was some really great ideas to help bridge gaps with people, especially in the current climate with the pandemic that we've had and people losing jobs and other things there. And I think I really saw an outreach of people wanting to help each other. And I think that wasn't what I was expecting from this, and I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, to speak to the technology piece, Stephen, what you said at the top of the hackathon day really resonated with me. with NGINX being a piece of core infrastructure and used in a way that, you know, it fronts so many different kinds of applications and is agnostic in many ways to its backends that I didn't really know what to expect from the application technology stacks. And I think we saw a lot of diversity in that. We also saw what we tend to see at hackathons, which is the craziness of hackathons, you know, and the pressure and the stress and the problems that come up. I've partook in many hackathons in my day, and it's always something else. Oftentimes it's the one thing you didn't expect to bite you that you spend, you know, 12 hours on, and it ends up crashing your project, or you finally overcome it. It's really a fun time. I could see that the folks put a lot of work into these hacks, and I was pretty impressed.
I was expecting like people to have great ideas and like having some sort of applications which were not ready, so that they are something work in progress. But I was quite impressed with the teams, how they had set up like those entire architectures and the entire applications in just 3 days. Yeah.
I've actually participated in a lot of hackathons over the years, and it has been always quite an interesting, you know, setup where there's some teams that, you know, get together and they're fighting other teams where they're constantly, you know, chasing down problems. Other ones who are like, oh, our product's done, and this has been like a nice mixture of people. I've actually found really nice is some of them had never worked with some of these technologies before, and so they're trying to deal with the, you know, from the ground up. But the cohesive nature going into it of having a vision of what they want to accomplish, and, you know, irrespective of what the outcome they get after a couple of days is, I'm like really excited about what that, you know, that end deliverable they could have is. That's really, you know, and the passion you can kind of feel for it, especially, you know, given the, you know, we'll just call it, you know, 2020 is, it's very heartwarming because it's the kind of thing that we really need at this time.
Yeah, and the fact that they were doing this all remote, right? Not co-located. This is how hackathons traditionally have been done in the past. That presents its own challenges. And then you're basing everything around NGINX and NGINX Unit. These are two things that are completely transparent to the user and to the application. You're not going to see these. So digging into it and the architectural overviews of each of their applications is where you really get to highlight how they utilize those aspects.
Yeah, I found that actually that point I think is very important, because one of the coolest things about NGINX overall is the fact that this is a software that can be used to do almost anything. You know what I mean? I mean, you could build basically, in terms of ideas, you know, the dream could be almost anything, and I think that's a lot of fun. So, Jared, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I think that maybe there's because it's so transparent. When you think of what an NGINX hackathon would be, you're kind of like, I'm not sure what that would be. And in the spirit of iteration, I wonder what we could think of. Could we dream up tweaks to the format that would take away some of that transparency and like put NGINX not just in front of the applications, but like as part of the application, or maybe unit. I was trying to think about how you might do that, and I thought. Well, there's scriptability inside NGINX, right? There's a Lua scripting. Maybe the format could be focused in on like pushing NGINX to new places, using it in unique and strange ways, featuring new technologies that are built into NGINX. I wonder what you all think about maybe tweaks to the hackathon format to really bring that transparency and really put NGINX at the front of it.
Actually, that's kind of giving me a really interesting idea, actually. So we spoke a couple of days ago on Unit about how it's got a number of bundled languages. I wonder if there would be some legs in a hackathon that added new capabilities to Unit, maybe introducing a new language or introducing a coupling with some of the other open source projects out there, like an OpenFaz or something else like that. There's maybe some legs in that kind of area. What do you think?
We should build up a team and then like invent our own coding language. That would be fun.
We set the rules and then we enter the hackathon.
I kind of like the ways that it kind of transcends the hackathon, and those who, on the sidelines watching things just like we are ways that like I didn't know or think we could use in this particular, manner or mechanism for, business or personal projects. So I'm just come away with a lot of lessons learned and a lot of excitement, and that's really good to me.
So another thing that, kind of building on that, what do you think of the overall, I guess, again, I don't want to focus too much in on each individual solution, but, what do you think of the overall architectures that these people are adopting? Is this how you expected to see the NGINX software used? Now, obviously, a couple of them didn't quite get to the point of actually making everything get up and running, but that's, hackathon time. But what did you think of how they were using the NGINX components?
I kind of thought it was a little interesting. I'm also looking at it from a perspective of if this were just a month or two later, and the service mesh component would be an element of this. Kind of really an interesting take on actually breaking up each of these applications into a microservices context, as opposed to how things are more bucketized, thrown inside of WordPress and or various components that we kind of traditionally think of it. I think that would make it a very interesting story. But kind of the way they were, working within the boundaries, and just to the point that like Jared and Jason were saying, is the code part of it, the fact that you've got a lot of extensibility in different languages, that a lot of people tend to feel they do what they do because that's what they're used to, or those are the requirements that they can use. And I kind of find this really opens the doors of a lot more options, as opposed to closing the door of saying you have to use this tool and therefore you then can only use Python, which is kind of the de facto go-to standard for most things. So it definitely gives a lot of opportunity for people to have freedom of development and freedom of delivery, as opposed to kind of being locked in and closed doors.
Yeah, I had like a couple of thoughts on the architectures. My first thought on the team one was that it was very interesting that they were showing like how the mobile can be also used in this. So that was interesting for me. And also those architectures which were shown, I started thinking like when you are learning a new platform and it's only 3 days, so where all like the architectural solutions made like optimal, or was this so some of the choices that those teams made, I started like questioning whether that would be like the best according to the best practices. And maybe in 3 days it's impossible to learn like best practices of a platform.
Yeah, you either completely limit your scope of your application to have a sound architecture in 3 days with very limited scope, or you go for the scope that you want and then you just throw out a ball of mud of code and hope that you can get it out there by the time that time's up. And I think we saw a little bit of each of those.
Yeah, I think I'm quite a big fan of like the minimally viable product, and getting to a point where that it's going to work and you can refine it later. And I think the hackathons are pretty much like based pretty well around that. The other thing I found quite surprising was seeing Perl being used and talked about a lot. I don't often encounter that much anymore. I'm a big fan. One of the places that I first started, and I liked that bit. So
yeah, now that Calvin's not here, we can say down with Python, up with Perl, right?
I did find it kind of interesting how they weren't just trying to fit everything into the container of Unit and NGINX Plus, is that they were leveraging external components like Flask and just all the other tools and abilities. There was that like integration to Azure and stuff. It's like, hey, the literal is the sky's the limit. You've got to use these two pieces, but you can do anything else you want beyond that point. And I kind of really like how that open the development landscape, as opposed to kind of looking at it from a narrow lens.
And I've seen some other hackathons before where they have been other vendor-sponsored hackathons where they've been very have very broad scope of what has to be incorporated into the solution from the vendor. And things get lost and the purpose of what you're trying to develop gets lost. Whereas with this, where it was very finite scope as far as what has to be there, and then anything else is possible for you to use, really allow them to focus on the solution and not the technology, which I think is really the key point of what this style of hackathon is designed for.
I do like how there were parts where there were questions coming from the audience, like, why did you choose this architectural decision versus another one? And I feel like some of the takeaways from that will be they didn't necessarily know or think about that direction. So, and then they're learning throughout this process as well. And then all the other attendees and such are also learning from that. And that's kind of the key of the hackathons, not just necessarily to produce a deliverable, but it's to learn from your peers and as well as from those, watching from the sidelines. And that's kind of compelling.
Yeah, just to touch on that as well, I think the style of this one, where it's going to be followed up and they're going to get the support to take it forward, I kind of think I'd really want to see what comes of some of these ideas in the future, because yeah, there were some really great ideas there, and they might not have known all the best architectural practices at the time, but they're going to get the support and help to do that, and I really want to see where these go.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting aspect here. I'll just call attention to that. The prizes are donated to charity, the financial prizes. Obviously, they get shirts and stuff. But, the real grand prize is what you just mentioned, which is basically, let's support this application and bring it to fruition. And that is, I think, something that really is interesting about this hackathon. And frankly, I think would make the judging a little bit harder, because you're going to watch it and you're going to say, how, not only which do I want to win, but also which do I want to see get that kind of support and growth in the future. So given what you saw, what would you have done? Let's say you had a hackathon team, would you have picked one of these things, or would you have picked something different? I mean, I think that maybe, a person's own background and person's own feelings about this might come into it and might help to inform, what kind of application you would come up with.
I probably would have picked something that would help with distance learning at the moment. A lot of kids spending a lot of time on Zoom and other platforms, and it's very hard for parents. It's very hard for carers. It's almost providing like a full-on tech support role, because it is quite hard for kids to do this distance learning. So I probably would have tried to come up with something very easy and lightweight for them to use.
Okay, so distance learning, that's a good one. What other ideas would you all have come up with?
I just learned about NGINX Unit the other day at the keynotes, and very exciting. Had I known about that, I think I probably would have done something a little bit different and not built an application, but went out and found open source projects that are already established, since NGINX is there to provide you scale, right? And took some open source projects like on-prem things like Discourse or things that you can self-host, and tried to take NGINX Unit and deploy those behind NGINX Unit, and then open source like the configuration required to get that done, and then leave that as the product of the hackathon. It's like, hey, now everybody can deploy Discourse with NGINX Unit. Something like that would have given a shot. Maybe failed, but would have been fun.
Yeah, I think I would have probably gone to direction of making something for elders, because population is getting older and older, and there are quite a lot of old people who are alone, and they don't have that like a social connection. So something to boost that connectivity throughout this COVID-19 time for those elder people.
Yeah, I think that was a message that came through, and it is interesting, like I said, that the different teams came up really with different angles on how to deal with the disconnectedness in society right now.
Yeah, I think the first one was social justice, this poll up where there were some sports news and you can create polls, and the second one was job volunteer helping. So if someone is seeking a job, so someone else can help. And then the third one was this candy looking user interface fundraising app which was like, how do you build that cool app in 3 days? And then the fourth one was this career roadmap maps where you can become like anything you want. So.
Okay, so given those four areas, what do you think of these ideas first? What do you think of these ideas?
So we live in tech. I mean, most of us, every one of us who's on the stream, and in general, we tend to live in tech and we live and breathe tech. And usually we're thinking about our problems in a tech-centric way. And I find it really, really nice when a bunch of these solutions that were coming forward were not, how do we solve problems for tech people? How do we solve problems for people who are spending day in and out of tech? And that means a real lot to me, because it's always finding a way to express that ability to actually have that impact on people. Just like, I mean, Jason had that great idea around for distance learning for education for kids, but as far as the offerings that they were bringing to the table, some of those could be really compelling and can have a big impact on the world and stuff like that. I'm looking at like a directly like this could be an acquisition kind of thing, just because of the impact it can actually have upon the world. And that's kind of really exciting. And it's, the target audience for that is not the, hey, let's go and find something that's going to, purely cater to a technical audience, because this is kind of a, a technical conference and event. And that's those are some of my takeaways around it. Is I don't want to play favorites one way or the other, but I definitely have some favorites that I kind of saw come out of the presentations they put on.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that one. I think there was the one that was like the building stories for people instead of CVs effectively. I think we take for granted so much being in tech of what LinkedIn is and what these things are for us, and that they probably are exclusively for us. So I was really quite inspired by the fact that that was more designed for everybody. It was a very inclusive application, and I think that speaks volumes, really.
Well, and to that point is like, when I think of LinkedIn, right, and LinkedIn Jobs is for tech people. Maybe they have a job that's not for tech people. LinkedIn Jobs is for tech people. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's very exclusive area in a particular way. That's not necessarily a word, but I really like the way this kind of opens the eyes and opens the potential, kind of bridges that gap of Nextdoor versus LinkedIn, that kind of in-betweener, and not limited solely to, middle America, basically.
So I saw that the way that they focused on that was more towards the service, part-time, self-employed, just odd job contractor type people. Whereas LinkedIn, you guys both mentioned that it's for tech people, but when you look at it as a whole, it's for business focused people, not independent services people. Whereas that app was more towards independent services. So there's definitely a need for that. There's not really anything there in the market. So that definitely does have especially now with everything going on with COVID and the pandemic, it's hard for those individuals to get the word out about, especially if they're just starting or if they're going into this from a layoff from another position, to actually get that business drummed up. And that's something that application could actually help with significantly.
Yeah, I agree. That one really resonated with me, especially in the new gig economy. There's a lot of solutions out there that are gigifying a lot of these trades. And it's like, well, some of us don't want the gig economy. We want a job. Like, I'm a tradesperson. I need a job. And so let me tell my story. And I think that could be, like Jason said, for everybody. And that's pretty exciting.
So next, I guess one of the things that I'll bring up is the judging. So again, one of the interesting aspects of this particular hackathon is that there are 3 winners, but they're not just first, second, and third place. The 3 winners are best or most impactful idea, best implementation, and best overall solution. So I think that it's really interesting to approach it that way. So best or most impactful idea, that doesn't need to work. That doesn't need to do anything. That doesn't need to be anything. What do you think? Which of these, in your opinion, would be the best or most impactful idea?
Well, I'll just go right back to the well and say the one we just all discussed, I think is, for me, probably the best and most impactful idea. Was that called Meraki? Was that the name of that one?
It was called Meraki.
Yeah, that's the one I would pick for best overall idea or impactful idea.
I'm sure they could do like a bridging with some network fabric and maybe some wireless and SD-WAN and provide services layered on top of that.
I was going to say it might need a little bit of a rename, but other than that, yeah. I have to agree. I think that's probably in that category. And I find that what you just said, Stephen, to be really interesting way to do a hackathon. I didn't know those 3 different categories for the prizing before, so that's. I hope a lot of people take some lessons from this.
And what's the difference between a solution and an implementation? Does that mean the implementation is like how far they got during the hackathon maybe, and the solution is what they designed? Or is there a way that we differentiate those two? Because they sound very similar to me.
Yeah, I think the best overall solution is kind of a combination of the two, and that is the grand prize winner. So the best overall solution is the one that gets to move forward from the hackathon and get the support of NGINX and AWS and get to production. So I think that's the answer to that.
Makes a lot of sense.
Regarding the most impactful idea, someone said that there are no poor ideas, there are only good or bad implementations of that idea. So coming from that point of view, but I really liked the Team 4, like the roadmaps idea. That was very good. It resonated with me.
Yeah, I like that whole idea that it's something that's intended to help somebody basically build their own life, build up their own career, start a business. It's funny, the name, I see what they were going with the name, but when they first said it, I didn't understand at all what they were going for. But now I can see it is sort of like a roadmap for success. I agree with you, Kati. I think that to me was the best idea, the most impactful idea. How about the best implementation? What did we see that was the best actually technical solution? I mean, I guess the first one, it ran.
That's true. Good point.
I was just trying to think of the order there. So the one where they also had the mobile mock-up and everything.
Right, the poll one.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe they got there in 3 days. That one, I think, is definitely the front runner for that category. I mean, that everything was together working, and it looked really good.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I was impressed with the we.js, the progress that was made considering the circumstances. So his partner had to drop out or couldn't make it day 2, and he was working on a bug fix like all the way up to the last minute. So the effort there, what he got on the screen was a good start. So impressed with the effort, and I could see where he was headed with it. There's just like so many road bumps in the way that he's very much a solo dev on that one.
Just to talk about one of the, I guess, challenges I often see in hackathons is that oftentimes people will run into a technical problem that can derail all of their progress and success. And you'd think that there might be some type of support for them. And I understand you learn while you make mistakes, but if like back in the days of you have a bad Ethernet cable and your project completely fails because of that cable, and the work you were doing had nothing to do with physical connectivity, I kind of find it to be a little disheartening when there could be, some mechanism to reach out, like, hey, we have support here to help you with basic support type problems, so you're able to continue on the vision of what you're trying to accomplish, so you can actually get to a full implementation solution. Or while going through that, you might realize, hey, what we had planned is not going to be a good fit, so let's actually change to this entire different way of doing it. I just kind of find that to always be a challenge within hackathons, and I wish there was some way to kind of mitigate that a little bit.
When it comes to implementation, I'm looking things from the point of view that what's gonna break it or make it for this application. So what I'm thinking is like for any application to succeed, they need to have best user experience and like this immediate love when you see the application. So for me, best implementation would go to that team 3, which was the fundraising app, because the user interface was so nice. So I don't care if the solution is running on own computer or they are not like everything working perfectly, but the user experience in that application was making it for me.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out as well to the user experience design from Team 4 with their wireframe mock-ups of the various, the various systems. I think that was Team 4, right? That was pretty impressive to me, even though it wasn't as much implemented in code. So I guess then the question is, how would you each rank these? How would you each have scored these if you were the judging? If you were the judges, and it'll be fun if not all of us pick the same ones. So let's see. So most impactful idea. Who's with? Who wants to go first? Who's most impactful idea?
Can you remind us of what all 3 categories were, just so we can make sure we pick appropriately?
Yeah, so impactful idea, best implementation, and then best overall solution. So I'm going to go back here. So most impactful idea, or actually, if we just look back, Team Hackflow with the social justice polling app, does that get one of those nods from you?
Not an idea, but come back for implementation.
Yeah, so maybe implementation for that one. Okay. Let's see. Team 2, Meraki, bridging the gap between people and jobs.
Yeah, I think that one gets
That's the
most impactful idea from me.
All right, we got a couple of votes there. Team 3, which was the transparency for NGOs. And then Team 4, which was Roadmap 360 for job training. I'm going to vote for that one. I like that one.
I would choose that one too.
All right, so it sounds like in this group, the Meraki application, right? Was that the one that we said? All right, so then how about best implementation? What do you think? Which one had the best implementation? Was that Team 1?
Yeah, Team 1 for me. It was really polished and very complete.
Does anybody have a difference of opinion?
I tend to agree. Hack Overflow. They had a great name. They had a lot of work. They did a lot of work.
Okay, well, here comes the hard one. What would you say was best overall? Okay, we got a Team 2 there from Mr. Kusek.
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'm going Meraki.
Yeah, that's Team 2. Okay, Meraki. I think that was right.
Also my
I think so
choice as well.
And Kati's at Team 4 with Roadmap. You know what? I got to say, I'm with you. I think I'm with you. I would. So how I'm looking at this is I'm looking at this and saying, which of these do I want to see NGINX and AWS give financial and developer support to, and which of these do I want to see live on, and which of these do I want to revisit next year at NGINX Sprint to see how it's been implemented and what's happened. And for me, I'm going to go with Roadmap 360. Kati, what do you think? Because you agree with me, so I'm gonna pick on you first.
My choice for the overall is the number 4.
I feel like Jason and Darrel are our tiebreakers because we know where Jared and I and Stephen and Kati are sitting. So where do you guys fall in between 1, 2, 3, and 4?
I've got a selfish point of this because I think maybe we should invest in the second one. So whichever one doesn't get the package from AWS and NGINX, we will take as a group, right? That's what's influencing my decision. Yeah, we'll take that one, right, and we'll take it to market. This sounds like the best idea.
All right, Jared, he's non-committal. What do you think?
I'm still a Team 2. I'll also point out, if we're going to be the voice of the people, that there's a simple poll in the announcements channel of the NGINX Sprint, or NGINX Community Slack, and the people have spoken, and I don't want to rub it in, but they also selected Team 2 just like I did.
Oh, really? I hadn't seen that poll. So the result of that poll is that the people have spoken and they selected Team 2?
Yep, they got Team 2, followed by Team 3, followed by Team 4, and then Hack Overflow Team 1. Because currently, I don't know if the poll is closed, they're still open, but that's the current voting.
We haven't heard Darrel's vote. Darrel, what are you thinking?
Oh, so yeah, Meraki was definitely my choice there. Even though he ran into some technical difficulties with getting things working with NGINX components specifically, he did have the application functioning, and the being able to get those people that are in that hard to service area for being able to find that day-to-day job. That's where my vote was going for that.
All right, so we win. We've won the award. We get the prize money, and the prize money goes to the charity of our choice. So this is now where I'm going to put it to you. Maybe do some quick Googling, come up with a name. What kind of charity, maybe we can say that, what kind of charity would you like to see the prize money go to? Obviously, there's 3 piles of prize money, so multiple charities can get it. Christopher, where would you like to see the prize go?
So I don't have a direct particular charity, but I do have attributes for charities I like. And it's ones where the money goes to actually help the people the charity is for, versus there's a lot of charities that have a significant amount of overhead, 50, 80% overhead that goes to management and definitely doesn't even touch the lives of the people. So that tends to be an area that I'm not a fan of. I like to see people get fed, or people get clothed, housed, or something along those lines, but usually done purely from the charitable sector, as opposed to NGOs or other organizations who try to say to do it, but again are very top heavy. So like you're saying, like as far as Googling, I'd probably do some like heavy Google foo to find those orgs that actually do deliver to the end people and don't have 6-figure, 7-figure salaries for the the executives who oversee this particular charity or something along those lines. I'm not going to name any particular ones because it's terrifying the number of ones that people give their money to who are in very few ways actually helping the people it's supposed to be for.
Well, just overall, it's terrifying because there are so many charities. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, if I had to pick one, my gosh, what would I pick? Kati, what would you pick?
I think I have basically 2 options. So of course I would love to see some fund going for girls coding. So some sort of a fund which encourages female developers. And then another option is UNICEF going for children. So those would be my options.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to, call out any situation here, but we didn't have any female folks in the hackathon today. And I know that doesn't reflect the diversity of people in the coding community generally, certainly not in the community of NGINX users and so on. So I'm going to go with you. Yeah, girls who code, something like that. Jared, what do you think? Where would you put the money?
Yeah, well, let me add my amen to that one. That's a great choice, Kati. And then in light of transparency, I think this is what Chris was talking about. And I think, what was it? Team 3 had the NGO transparency app. So we know that's a solution that our hackathon entries were interested in as well. One that is very transparent, or at least historically has been, assuming things haven't changed recently. Everything changed recently. So who knows? But Charity Water has been really one of the most transparent charities out there, and they will show you exactly where your money goes, even taking pictures of the actual well and showing you a pin on the map. This is the well in Africa that your money helped build. And I think that's really cool. I like when you can see your money in action, and like we've been talking about, doesn't just go into some sort of black box and who knows where it's going to end up.
Darrel, how about you? Where would you send the money?
I have no clue, but I do follow along very closely with Christopher's sentiment. Definitely, there are way too many charitable organizations that effectively be nothing more than tax shelters. So it would definitely be something that would need a lot of thought, and that I just have not had the time to really delve into.
I'm kind of echoing the similar statements about diversity and inclusion. So Project Girl Code, something like that would be a good one. and also for ethnic minorities as well. There isn't enough. I mean, look at, there's 5 guys and 1 girl on this call as well. It's like we need to do better as an industry in general, be more accepting. So any charities that support that, I just, in the last few months on Twitter, I've seen so many good engineers and other things have been disparaged by bad culture. So charities that support those things as well.
Another interesting aspect was that you know, all of the teams were basically South Asian teams. You know, I think that's another area that, you know, would come into the decision making process for me. You know, frankly, you know, if I think that the charity should reflect the people who put in the work, and you know, the fact that those are the teams, you know, I would want to try to find something in that, you know, geographical region as well.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. And also, I really like to see that there are so many people in that area of the world trying very hard to make things better for everybody. They're very selfless in that regard, because a lot of those ideas were all very humanitarian, very selfless ideas. So yeah, supporting some charities in that region and those people as well be great.
Yeah, and when listening to those ideas that those teams have, many of them were regarding unemployment. So it must be like this COVID-19 impacting that area and having impact on unemployment.
Yeah, I think that has to do as well with the social safety net, that, you know, maybe we in the West have more, you know, unemployment support. But if you look at it, if you look at how these applications and how their lives, you know, kind of drove these applications, you know, we're looking at, you know, unemployment and entrepreneurialism and, you know, supporting transparency. I mean, I think that this really does kind of inform help me to understand the worldview of people outside the United States.
Yeah, and also like when people seek for education, so it's not that clear that people can afford for getting education. So getting that career path that you want, which seems like obvious for many people, so it's not that obvious for others. So there's like a lot of monetary investment that you have to make and then give up something during your 20s to be able to get education.
I'm excited to see who wins and which charity they select. Stephen, are we getting close? Are our judges still deliberating? Where do we stand?
I just got word that they've almost selected. They needed just a couple more minutes, and they will be joining us with the announcements maybe in 5 more minutes. So yeah, that's great. So I guess to wrap up, you know, how did you find NGINX Sprint and this hackathon and this overall virtual format? I think, again, to come back to, from my perspective, one of the things that strikes me is that the hackathon teams expressed how difficult it was to do a hackathon remotely and virtually. And I can absolutely understand that. I think that's what a lot of us are facing right now with our jobs, is that it's challenging to do collaborative work remotely. You know, what do you all think of NGINX Sprint this year?
I've really enjoyed it. The passion in the presentations, the technical skill level, the story. I think the one thing I've taken away from the conference from day one, but also from the day 2 demos, was they laid out a stall and took us along the journey. They took us through all the products with the same application and improved upon it every single time. And that really helped me to understand where the products fit and what I would do with them myself.
I've attended a lot of virtual conferences in these past 6 months or so, and I found this to be one of the most engaging ones, where there is more than one avenue for people to actually engage attending the event, as opposed to just just being a webinar where it's just a bunch of people connected and going and viewing stuff. But the ability for people to actually go engage the experts, and it's not one of those one-on-one, it's a one-on-group type of thing where everyone is learning them from those things and is able to communicate. And the hallway function they had, I found actually be kind of, really nice for people who are sharing where they're from, because that kind of brings back to and actually even more open than I found in-person conferences, because there are a lot of people in the hallway, but you don't necessarily have as easy of a way to go and engage them. I remember, like, I'm from Chile, I'm from India. It's like, that's awesome. I don't get that from the in-person conference, and I found it to be a more opening, especially for a global audience, to be able to attend this, as opposed to just the people who are already active users of the product who are geographically close by. When you consider the number of open source users of the platform, and the fact that they might not have the ability to attend an in-person conference, this kind of really opened the doors to that much larger of an audience, and I found that to be, like, really rewarding in the end.
I'm on the same lines with Christopher. So I find this probably one of the best online events I've ever been. For me, the most interesting part was the day one, and I've been going through that Gene Siem's presentation. So he was the author of the Accelerate DevOps book, and I've been watching that again from YouTube and collecting all those book recommendations and all those cool statistics. So that was something that was most interesting for me.
Yeah, I'll echo both Kati and Christopher that the most interesting point of this conference wasn't necessarily the content, but the format. Compared to a lot of other virtual conferences, it was more engaging for potentially everybody. Us as the delegates being able to bring questions to the room, which a lot of the virtual conferences are missing. Also being able to have that discourse and not just a presentation without the feedback is definitely more engaging for everybody, even if they're not actively engaging themselves. So that was the biggest aspect that was of the greatest interest for me.
And can we talk about live demos for a minute here? And what do you guys think about real live demos that are not pre-recorded? And when you ask them a question, it's like, we can look at that because it's a live demo, right?
Well, I'll just, I want to pile onto that. In this, it is so challenging for people to be presenting live demos. So let's just start off by saying that not everyone can do live demos. Not everyone has that ability. Not everyone has that environment. I mean, we did a presentation at Tech Field Day where the power literally went off in this person's house while they were presenting. So caveat, yes, live demos, but it's always good to have demos on video, especially now. But that being said, go ahead.
I mean, and that being said as well is, I mean, there were some recorded demos, but there were still people doing live demos, and because even when you're in a well-staged, massive, audience type of thing, I've actually seen stage demos actually, kind of falter as well. But just the ability to go and deliver that and be able to, because I mean, the output is for the audience. It's to showcase what you're doing, but it's also, you want to be able to show stuff to people and what have you. And I like live demos. I mean, I don't care how they necessarily deliver it, but I do like it when they've got that confidence level as they're kind of feeding that, that data out to us.
On that note, I would say that it's not necessarily the live demo aspect of it. It's those presenters that have the materials available to say that they're doing a recorded presentation. They have the materials available on their laptop to be able to show and dig into it and talk to it further, like what you were mentioning, as opposed to those that are tied to just the recorded video. And like, oh, I don't have that with me right now, but I can touch base with you later. Having the ability to say, okay, let's pivot on that and show what what you want me to show you right now, and be able to expand upon what the base demo is. And I think that's what's the more important aspect, as opposed to a pure live demo.
I forget who the presenter was who was doing a recorded demo, but was so seamless in the transitions back and forth and all the things that are being said and what have you. And I found that like something like, all right, we're going to pause here for a moment and answer your question and address things. That was, I mean, that's the ability to do, whether it be a live demo or even a recorded demo, but being able to have that knowledge and expertise to be able to, you know, respond to the audience in such an interactive fashion. You know, it's like I'm saying, it doesn't matter which way you do the demo delivery, but I'd say all across the board, though, all the demos were really, I enjoyed them. They're very pleasing, you know, and I really like the outcome I got out of them.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I can't remember the name, but I can remember that they had a really great blurred out background and they looked really good on camera. But the skill they had at pausing at the right places, knowing the content, even though you've got that recorded demo, he knew that content in that recorded demo frame by frame, and it mastered the presentation of the demo. And I think that's what matters the most. I mean, live or not live, that presentation of the information to you would have worked.
I believe it was Daniel with the web application firewall demo. Now, there were a couple of people that were really good at this, but Daniel struck me as very smooth. It was like a magician out there. In fact, I didn't realize it was recorded until about halfway through when I saw the play pause button when he hovered over it, because he was so seamlessly like first of all, I've never seen a conference or an event where you're not only you allowed to, but you're encouraged to interject into the middle of a presentation. It's like, no, please just go ask your questions right in the middle. That's really cool. And but as a presenter, that's really intimidating. That's really difficult to not only have to have your stuff down, and then also to be presenting your stuff, but to allow some random stranger you never met to just say, hey, let me ask you a question. And it could be, you know, what's the size of the Empire State Building? It could be anything. You don't know what you're going to answer. But about halfway through, I was like, wait a second, this is pre-recorded, because it was so smooth. I thought he was doing it live. And then he would field the question, just like Christopher said, and then he would hit play again, and it would keep going. He even like scrubbed to the right spot to say, I don't want to wait the 13 seconds I was going to. I want 7 seconds. It was not just Daniel, but that was the one that stood out for me. There was lots of people that were doing that, and my hat's off to the presenters.
Yeah, if I can jump in on that one, that I would think of as the Tech Field Day effect. The fact that people jump in, and it's funny. Just a funny thing about Tech Field Day is that since we post all these videos on YouTube, a lot of the people don't know they're watching Tech Field Day. A lot of the people, in fact, think that they're watching a video kind of produced and, you know, like a marketing video from the company, until someone interjects with a question. And then one of the most common comments that we'll get is, what just happened here? Like, how come this guy is interrupting the presenter? You know, how come she just blurted out a question while the presenter is happening? But then I think that what happens is people realize that this is actually a way to make everything just more credible. And it really does make the demos more credible too, because you know that somebody can be challenged on something. And even the presentations, even just the PowerPoint, you know that the presenter can be challenged on something. Because I think that all too often in tech and in media, things become sort of a one-way street. You know, I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to make you listen to me, and I'm going to say whatever I want to say, and I'm going to turn off the comments. And this is like the opposite of turn off the comments, except in video. And so, but that being said, I love it, but it sure is hard on some presenters, because of course it's intimidating. It's a little scary. It's a little challenging sometimes for people to hop around. Not everybody's so good at hopping forward 7 seconds or whatever. And, yes, I'm always impressed when a presenter really just comes in here and just nails it.
Well, what are your thoughts about this streaming platform plus Zoom plus Twitter plus Slack and maybe if there was a fifth or greater?
Yeah, don't forget
option,
Slido.
There you go. So they're all of those things as a kind of mechanism or vehicle going forward for a successful, effective delivered presentation or conferences or something like that? Are there pieces that you feel like should be integrated or included as part of the picture? I just trying to think of. Again, we're not. This is not the last conference we're going to be attending this year. For some of us, it's not the last conference we're attending this week, and there's and they're all done so differently. And this was done really well. I like the level of engagement and everything, but there are some that are they're a train wreck, and I like not train wrecks, especially because we're taking time out of our days in order to be participate in these types of events, right?
So actually, I think that's a really good one, right? So the one trouble I have with virtual events so far is concentration and blocking out time. I mean, everyone knows I'm at home, so they're going to try and block things in anyway. But I find it difficult to sit and watch presentations for hours on end at my desk. It's not easy. So this format of us being the delegates, I can see that being on the other side of this, I can interact and say, right, ask this question. I want to have this answer. That level of interaction and bringing the presentation together actually helps with the concentration aspect. And it means that I'm more likely to sit through it, not just go and watch the recordings later on.